I know, but it's like an odd number. It's 6.
Hopefully, we all agree.
Okay.
I already know my answers. On
It's 5:30, so we'll go ahead and begin. Yeah. We'll start by approving the February 3rd, 2025 minutes from last month. Has everybody on the board had a chance to look over those? Is there any questions on those? Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion on those
I'll make a motion.
minutes? Anybody
We
second?
weren't here, so we can't.
I will second.
Oh, yeah. And you guys were here, right?
We were here.
Okay. All those in favor that were here? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are good. Do you need me to sign yours, Charlie?
Yes, sir.
Just pass it down when you're ready. Do you have it? Thank you. Just one? I was just giving you time to get here. Yeah. Okay, we're all set there. I know we have a lot of speakers tonight. Apologize about the noise for the improvements on the building, so just try to limit the background noise if you can and step up to the microphone when you're talking so we can hear you. Charlie, you want to take this over for swearing in speakers?
Yes, sir, thank you. Everybody signed in to speak tonight. Please stand, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the statement you're making tonight to be the truth to the best of your information and belief? Yes. And I saw every one of them, they all said yes.
Okay. And make sure you're signed in if you're speaking. If you haven't, go ahead and do that. We'll start with the one old application that we have from last month. Rhett, go right ahead.
Elise. Evening, everybody, and I won't take up too much of y'all's time and energy with this continued application, but we will give you the context and all that, and the applicant does have some more information for you this evening, as requested by the board. Just to recap, we are at 100 Nuthatch Trail, first application of the year. The context here is it's a variance request to reduce a 100-foot landscape buffer set back to 82 feet for construction of a home. That's the request as it stands. It's an R1C single-family residential zone, plan unit development, just under or over 2/3 of an acre rather, off Cynthiana Road, Nuthatch Trail. Overall, we are recommending approval. So here's the parcel in question. Just confirming the zone here. So when we're looking at KRS 243 as it pertains to variances, basically the board must determine that granting of the variance will not adversely impact the health, safety, or welfare of the general public, nor will it alter the essential character of the general vicinity, causing a nuisance overall, nor will it be an unreasonable circumvention of requirements of zoning regs. And in doing so, we must determine that the requested variance arises from special circumstances which don't generally apply to land in the same zone or general vicinity, that the strict application of the provisions would deprive an applicant of the reasonable use of their land or would create an unnecessary hardship on the applicant, and whether or not the circumstances are a result of actions of the applicant taken subsequent to the adoption of said regulations. Lastly, however, if the board finds that the applicant is kind of creating the problem themselves, so to speak, as a result of their own actions, then the board must essentially deny said application. Okay, so here is the initially proposed footprint we were given last hearing. There in the blue, that red dashed line you see there is the limit of said landscape buffer as it extends into the parcel. You can kind of see how it parallels the outside line there. It's a little funny shaped lot, a little squished, and I'll illustrate that in a moment. So here is a detail of said landscape buffer from the original plat, from which it came. As you can see, the 100 feet in width is not in totality plantings. The first 50 feet of depth that adjoins the home lots themselves is just open space. Then you get into a section of trees and other shrubbery and things along US 62. You will see noted here in this detail that the width of right-of-way varies on Cynthiana Road as well, so that kind of causes the buffer to swim a little bit. We'll illustrate that here. Essentially, staff has found that allowing encroachment into the first 50 feet, as they already adjoin homes, it doesn't necessarily diminish from the purpose of the screening. The screening is still 30 some odd feet beyond that before it even begins in this case. And you all correct me, you all may know better than me of the recent past of US 62. It has since undergone some improvements, roadbed straightening, things of that nature. The green dash line there is now essentially the path of right-of-way as it exists. And you can see the red jogged line up there is the outside of the parcel lines and landscape buffer. So at one time, it kind of followed a not so linear shape before US 62 was improved and straightened. And again, that pinch point here is kind of what causes a little bit of the encroachment issue with the landscape buffer, being that it is a little bit peaked, I'll say, kind of pinched in. It does shove this buffer a little further into the lot than one would expect. So overall, we're just over 2/3 of an acre here in R1C. There are actually no current regulations that speak to this buffer as a requirement for development standards. However, staff has determined through research that essentially it was put on the plat just as a detail and like an attribute of the community. So we do not have anything in the subregs or zoning regulations that mandates this for any new developments. Yes. And long story short, approval of the requested variance would not diminish the screening along US 62, as the encroachment would only occur within an area of open space before the plantings are established. So overall, again, we do recommend the approval of the request to diminish the 100-foot landscape buffer down to 82 feet. A little bit of an encroachment there. Standard conditions of approval here. And I believe the applicant has prepared some supplementary information. You all should have received it, I believe, this morning, digital. Mr. Schwartz there has a paper copy as well. If y'all don't have anything further for me.
Okay, yes, thank you. Did you want to go ahead and start his portion of that, or did you guys have any questions before that?
Maybe start with whoever owns that, about the differences, 'cause that's what I'm curious, like what do they not want?
Is the neighbor who was here at last month's meeting here?
We did re-notify too.
Okay. I didn't see them here. It was one,
Okay.
two.
So no one's here to speak against it?
Is anybody else here to speak against this? Okay, go right ahead.
I'm not here to speak against it.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Kat Butler. I'm the president of the HOA at Barkley Meadows.
Okay.
I have come with a letter of support for the variance from the board of directors. I have a few talking points for this that was mentioned in the previous meeting. One, I know that the homeowner at the neighboring property had mentioned that 100 nuthatch might have been owned by the HOA at some point or was going to be turned into something, but that was never the case. It was always owned by the developer. And there's no, as mentioned before, there's no conflict with local regulations for the variance. As far as community engagement goes, I know that was important to your board, as far as communication with the developer and the homeowners. So the homeowners reached out to me and one of our other members of the board, and we've discussed with them why we are supporting this. We've also worked closely with representatives from James Monroe Homes and determining if it is a safety issue or a traffic issue, and we've determined that it's not. The line of sight, it is an uphill kind of coming up to it, so you actually can't see Cynthiana until you're at the top of the road anyway. And there is that tree line that's there, and once you're past that tree line, then you do have full visibility, and a home being constructed there with the third car garage would not impede visibility on Cynthiana Road. The third car garage variation there does help with street parking. That side of the road, there is no street parking allowed to allow traffic flow off of Cynthiana Road onto Nuthatch. So building that third car garage, ones allow for more parking space for those homes, but just helps alleviate some of the congestion there at that corner. The proposed construction there is for one of the more sought-after home layouts. So building a home of that size, which is not any larger than other homes in the neighborhood, does add to the appeal of the neighborhood. Building a nice, big, beautiful home right at our entrance does allow, you know, to show how beautiful our neighborhood is. So all in all, the board, the Barkley Meadows Homeowners Association Board of Directors does support this variance. And I do have a signed copy from myself and from our secretary if we could get that submitted into the record.
And what was your name?
Kat Butler.
Kat. Does anybody have any questions for Kat? Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have, like, issue with it now? I mean, is there any other, like,
Oh,
question?
yeah, we
Yeah.
also need to hear from James Monroe
Yeah.
as well.
And what,
Yeah.
did you hear back from the neighbors at all?
Myself?
Yeah, in any capacity? Okay.
And I thought this was a two-car garage that we talked about last time.
No, it was three.
It was still three?
Yeah, because I remember I was,
Okay.
yeah, I remember, it was three.
I'm just curious, cause I wasn't here what the concern was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna speak for them, but,
I spoke with them and I watched the video. I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, but I did kind of gather from them that one of their concerns was the visibility
yeah,
looking onto Cynthiana. So turning right and left onto that busy road, they were worried that a home being constructed there was going to impede visibility. They were also concerned that, I think they were misinformed that the HOA actually owned that lot at some point, and they had said that they were told that it was going to be turned into like a park for kids. But those conversations, I cannot say, I was never a part of them, and I don't think that they ever actually occurred. I think maybe they gathered that from other people in the neighborhood, and that wasn't direct source from the HOA or from the developer themselves.
Oh,
And they were worried about the size of the home, which fits in with the square footage that's required per our bylaws. So,
okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else to speak on behalf?
I just can't see any issues like that you can make.
Hello, my name is James Monroe, and I appreciate you guys, I appreciate the Board of Adjustments tabling the application to give us an opportunity to put evidence in the record that would support your approval of this application. I apologize for not attending the meeting last month. I had two non-negotiable meetings at the same time, and I've watched the recording of this meeting several times and found there to be confusion, misinformation, assumptions made that I would like to address and clear up tonight. I can tell you from the recording that many of you were struggling with making a decision on your vote. And I believe tonight I'll be able to provide evidence in the record that will support your approval of this application. Typically on a Board of Adjustment meeting that we do as a builder, throughout all of our building operations, there's no issue with it and people don't notice what we're trying to do. We're not trying to put in a gravel parking lot, a sign. We're not trying to build something different. We're usually just trying to deal with something that's on a plat and it does not affect the neighbors whatsoever. Since the previous meeting, based on the comments that I heard, I have personally reached out to the person who is in opposition to address any of their concerns brought up in the meeting to better understand their position. I did leave a message on her voicemail, and my call was never returned. I also have reached out to members of the HOA, to the board members of the HOA, and had detailed conversations with multiple board members, and I had instructed them to have any person in the neighborhood who would reach out to me directly if they had any questions or concerns about this adjustment. My staff also proactively reached out to 104 neighbors in the community, those are everybody that we have sold a house to ask them if they were aware of the request, and we found no opposition, and we did through this communication, and in fact, we raised additional support letters that we can put into the record if it's necessary tonight. To begin, with KRS 100-2 or 2.43, this will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare. I think that's the most important thing that we can look at. The exhibit that you see behind me, and I'm so sorry that's so small. I can probably make that bigger if we need to, but I'll kind of go through it right here.
We have it.
We have 50 feet from the road, edge of the road, to our property line. From our property line, we have another 50 feet to the building line. And then from the building line, we have another 32 feet to the actual structure that we're wanting to build in the courts. So we are 132 feet from the edge of US 62 or Cynthiana Road. The stop sign at the intersection of Cynthiana Road and Nuthatch Trail is located 76 feet beyond the variance request. So this stop sign right here, back to where our variance is 76 feet. Sorry.
That's what I understand.
Just. And that car is to scale, and this is from our engineer. So you can see that this car is probably 4 car lengths beyond our encroachment into this area before you get to the stop sign at the Cynthiana Road. I hit the arrow button. That's okay. We'll go to page 2, if you don't mind, or I can do it and you tell me. There we go. As you'll see on page 2, here's a Google Map image. We're talking about, this is the lot that we'd like to build the house on right here. You come up to the stop sign. As you can see, Cynthiana Road curves away from the intersection. So this encroachment would have no impact on your line of sight at Cynthiana Road in Nuthatch. And if you're looking to the right direction, you're looking away from the house, you would have no encroachment or no line of sight issues from there whatsoever. A third car garage does not alter the essential character of the general vicinity. In fact, not allowing it would alter the essential character of the general vicinity. We'll go to page 3. As you can see on Nuthatch, this is 104 and 106 Nuthatch, where we have 2 car garages on the same side of the street. This is only one house separating from the one that we're encroaching on. To eliminate the parking concerns, since there's no parking allowed on that side of the street, the third car garage allows us to put 2 additional cars off the street. We've gone to great lengths to build a streetscape with different house elevations next to each other. And the third car garage gives us a curb appeal and it lets us match the continuity of the neighborhood. The variance request does not circumvent, I think this is part A of the KRS 100. I'm gonna back up, I'm sorry. The variance does not circumvent any requirement of zoning regulations. In fact, Bartley Meadows is the only neighborhood on US 62 that has a landscape buffer to US 62. The requested variance arises from special circumstances which do not generally apply to land in the general vicinity of the same zone. The right-of-way of US 62, as Red had shared, is variable due to the road project from some time ago. While Cynthiana Road is currently parallel to the home within the variance request, the right-of-way is larger in this lot, thus creating a dogleg to the property. As Rhett pointed out, the dogleg is what we're talking about here and up here. Generally, property lines are perpendicular to the road frontage. This is the best practice to have your house parallel to the road frontage. The increased visibility for drivers backing out of their driveway makes it easier when you don't have an acute angle as we have on 100 to Nuthatch. That's why we have the home perpendicular or parallel to Nuthatch in that instance. The strict application of this provision, this is part B of KRS 100, the strict application of this provision of the regulation would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of their land or would create an unnecessary hardship of the applicant. We are only trying to build the same home plans that we have built throughout the neighborhood. We have built and or plan to build this plan 14 times out of 154 homes. This means that this meets our streetscape diversity goal for the neighborhood. A typical lot we'll go to page 5. A typical lot in Bartley Meadows has a 42% buildable area after easements, setbacks, and building lines. The homes built in Bartley Meadows typically uses 30% of the lot total area as for the home's footprint. We'll go to page 6. 100 nuthatch, we'll go to page 7. 100 nuthatch buildable area is only 15.5% of the lot, and we need 30% to build the typical home in Bartley Meadows. Due to the dog leg in the middle of the buildable area of the lot, this is reduced even greater. 100 nuthatch is on the side of the road that prohibits street parking, and this lot has 170 feet of street frontage with no parking on Nuthatch Trail, And the third car garage will allow 2 additional cars to be parked off the street. What we're going to see with this being the entrance of the neighborhood, you can leave it right there, that's fine. If we don't allow the additional off-street parking right here, these cars will have no choice but to park here all the way up to the stop sign. We find that would be less desirable in the neighborhood to have additional side street parking here, so we want to get them off the street. You know, we've gone to great lengths to build the streetscape with different house elevations next to each other throughout Bartley Meadows, and we feel like the 3-car garage and this house plan, which we've built multiple times throughout the neighborhood, creates the same continuity. The circumstances, Part C of KRS 100, the circumstances are a result actions of the applicant taken subsequent to the adoption of a zoning regulation which the relief is sought. There is no zoning regulation to require a 100-foot landscape buffer in this scenario. The land was originally slated to be part of a business industrial park, and when those plans were changed, it became possible for this land to be developed into a neighborhood. There were very few notes on record on the details of the zone change nearly 20 years ago. In my 21-plus years of development experience, I know it is essential to gain the staff's approval prior to being heard before the Planning Commission. During this process, there are roundtable meetings, technical review committees, and many other meetings and conversations between planning and zoning staff, the developer, and their engineers. Very little records are kept in these meetings, conversations, and reviews. Developers will offer to add restrictions to their land where there is no regulation requiring it, but the staff requests it as a condition of their approval of support. Just to be clear, we don't have any records to say that the staff supported this or asked for it or not, but I'm just saying from our experience in developing. The only thing that we can find in the record on the 100-foot landscape buffer is the staff report dated December 14th, 2006. That states, if we'll go to page 9, that the applicant proposes a 100-foot landscape buffer along US 62. The applicant in 2006 was RBB&M Properties, who began the development in approximately 2007. The company went on to develop 28 lots in Bartley Meadows. Titan Kentucky Holdings LLC purchased the undeveloped property from RBB&M Properties in 2017, 10 years later, and developed Units 2 and Unit 3 in Bartley Meadows. Titan Kentucky Holdings LLC sold the developed lots to James Monroe Homes in 2022. It would be a stretch to consider the 100-foot landscape buffer as a voluntary proposal from RBB&M Properties LLC without the condition of staff recommendations to a zone approval, and then further stretch that this was some sort of action James Monroe Homes took to create this circumstance when James Monroe Homes just purchased the lots in 2022, 16 years later. The staff report, we'll go to page 8. We'll go up. Yep. The staff report, with limited records from nearly 20 years ago, we must look at the language as it's written by the staff of Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission for what it does and does not say. The applicant, it says on page 9, thank you, I'm sorry to make you jump back and forth. It says the applicant proposed a 100-foot landscape buffer along US 62. It merely states that the 100-foot landscape buffer along US 62. It does not state from the right-of-way of 62 nor the center line of US 62, but just states along US 62. For what I could only assume was for the simplicity of the condition, the staff and engineers recorded this in the proper, on the property line, not from along US 62 as in the staff report, due to the right-of-way of US 62 being varied. On our variance application, the encroachment we have requested is 132 feet from the edge of US 62, well within the verbiage as written in the staff report of 2006. If the staff wanted to be from the right-of-way, they could have simply added the verbiage to their report or put any other document in the record solidifying their intent in 2006. Note, not this staff. Just to recap, the US 62 to the property line is 50-plus feet. Then there's another 50 feet from the property line to the building line and then to the tree road. Then there is 32 feet from the edge of the house to the encroachment that was granted. This puts the house over 132 feet from the edge of US 62, 76 feet from the stop sign that is at the intersection, which means and exceeds the verbiage of the 100-foot landscape buffer along US 62. I think, I have a whole lot more I could say, but I think I've kind of gotten the point to what we're trying to say here.
Yeah,
I'd love
we
to
got
answer
you.
your questions. Without opposition here, I could go into all of that, but
No, that's great. Thank you for the detailed info. Does anybody have questions for him, for James? I'll just say, I went out there 3 times this past month. I tried to go at different times during the day and during the week and drive up to that stop sign. I didn't notice anything that would obstruct the view, even with the house being there, so.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. All right, on to the new applications for this month. Rhett, go right ahead. And yeah, there should be a couple chairs freed up if anybody wants to grab one.
Okay. Okay, we'll get away from variances and on to conditional uses, something a little different. The new application this evening, it's 650 South Broadway, a conditional use permit for a wellness spa. It's an R1B zone, single family, right at half an acre, accessed, by South Broadway. Overall, we are recommending approval. This is the subject property in question. I'm sure most of y'all have driven past it, I don't know how many umpteen times. Just confirming the zone here. So conditional use permits are just that. Conditional uses are those that could be allowed in zones at which they don't normally exist, but they are meant to be essential or promote public health, safety, or welfare in one or more zones, but which would impair the integrity and character of the zone in which it's located. It's technically not the zone you would normally find it in, unless reasonable restrictions and conditions are placed on the location, size, extent, character, et cetera, performance standards, so to speak, as made by the board's recommendation and approval, are imposed in addition to those which would be, dictated by the zoning regulation as well. Conditional uses may be permitted in districts as designated under the zoning district regulations, but only when specifically approved by the Board of Adjustment. So just to summarize, they are not uses permitted by right. They take significant amounts of consideration, potentially multiple steps of review, and conditions that are found to be reasonable and acceptable and accomplish the goal of the preservation or promotion of, public welfare. As such, a conditional use permit is the legal authorization to undertake a conditional use issued by the administrative official by the Board of Adjustment, and it consists of 2 parts. A statement of factual determination by the Board of Adjustment which justifies the issuance of the permit, and also a statement of the special conditions which must be met in order for the use to be permitted. So there's that language again, conditional, to operate within parameters as set forth by you all. Specifically for this property, Section 432 of the ordinance lists professional offices as a conditional use in the R1B zone. Professional offices are generally defined by, your standard dictionary as a place of business where professional or their staff provide services to clients. It's been determined that this sort of establishment fits within that umbrella. Again, professional offices are conditional uses of different types within this zone. As far as staff count, the applicant has stated there'll be up to 4 other employees. Business hours are pretty standard, 9 to 6 Monday to Friday, 10 to 2 on Saturdays, no business to be conducted on Sundays. The applicant currently has a business at a different location, same business model, serves approximately 3 clients an hour. I may be butchering this language, so I'll yield to the applicant to kind of clarify on these numbers here. Over a typical month at their current address. That all being said, we do expect there to be reasonable and safe parking to serve the site, both ingress, egress, et cetera, and to be able to kind of regulate and encourage proper business practices. The closest applicable metric we have, as defined by our subregs, is for barbers and salons, and you must have 2 spaces needed per beauty chair or service space, something to that nature. So if this application were approved, that would constitute adherence to this metric to ensure, safe and efficient function of the property. The location overall along an arterial roadway and the availability of suitable parking on site can provide safe access without major impact to the immediate area. And again, this is the property overhead in question. Staff admittedly was not able to visit this site on the property grounds. It's not currently owned by the applicant, and frankly, I just wasn't comfortable asking somebody else that wasn't necessarily involved in the application if I could go out there on foot. So, but this is a pretty good illustration here of the amount and type of paved area that they currently have for parking and circulation. I will say, and is it right here? No, it's somewhere in here. But the applicant has also submitted a drawing that kind of illustrates a proposed parking area that they would like to expand. However, I think it would be wise for the board to take those proposed conditions into consideration and see if that size and function of use would be a reasonable use as defined by you guys, and what conditions may be evaluated to make them fit within the bubble it's appropriate. Because again, conditional use permits, they are void once the property is sold, transferred, et cetera, or the function itself ceases. So we do have to consider what are we left with if we allow, certain types of expansion that may or may not be reasonable, and then, we are now back to a residential property in a residential zone. So staff does think that it's important to consider these things. And again, you all may choose to impose other conditions such as screening, et cetera, whatnot, within a reasonable basis. Now, previous approvals do not create precedents, but conditional use permits of a similar fashion in a similar area do kind of speak to the character of an area over time, and staff has gone all the way back till 1978 and found this is, I chose a corridor between essentially the cemetery and Garth Elementary, all right there on Broadway for the most part, maybe a block or so off. I think all these are South Broadway.
Hey, Rhett, are those active right now?
They may not necessarily be active.
Okay, I was curious. I was like, are these?
No, and to be fair, again, the permits do disappear.
Right.
After,
okay.
and just because it was approved, they may or may not have even done it.
Okay.
People get approvals for things all the time or go, oh, this was not what I thought, right? Again, previous approvals do not set precedents, but we can speak to the character of the area potentially through these. Overall, we find that the approval of the conditional use permit would not adversely impact the public health, safety, or welfare, and would not alter the general character of the vicinity. At this time, the applicant's not proposing altering or taking down the structure, with the exception of potentially putting in more parking. That's for consideration. Again, there is ample paved surface to the side and rear of the home that could serve as access and off-street parking for staff and clients. The proposed conditional use permit for a wellness spa falls within the category of professional office as stated, and meets the description of such, and shall follow the restrictions as set forth by the ordinance, and also by you all if you choose to add maybe some other conditions throughout your review here. The general vicinity has or has had many small businesses operating out of residentially zoned properties. I'll go back. This one here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to clarify, going above and saying that there's likely not be an impact to the public safety, Alta welfare, staff's conclusion is that ultimately by promoting this personal service, as described by the applicant, it would promote specifically the public welfare of this zone and others nearby zones.
Thank you,
So
sir.
speaking to the positive.
Yes. Our first few conditions here are our pretty standard conditions. We get down to number 5 again, or actually we'll start with number 4 there. The applicant shall adhere to the described hours of operation. I don't know that we can, honestly, we might have to amend that. Mr. Perkins, you may tell me, and Mr. Fleming here. The original language in here is for limiting or setting a limit on the volume of clientele. I don't know that we really want to tell somebody how that's successful they can and can't be. I think you and I had a brief conversation on that before, and I
No,
haven't.
we have placed conditions on hours before. We have never put conditions. I'm not saying you can't, I can't imagine how you would, but I'm not saying you can't. But we have never put conditions that would limit their clientele. That was never done. If you can figure out a way to do that, obviously we can, work on it.
Well,
But-
if the chair would like to at least make a note, we can revisit that if you like. We'll put a pin in
If
it.
Charlie can't do it, I don't know who can,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
Let's see here.
That is where we would consider limiting the parking on site.
Right.
And to kind of go along with that in that same condition, expansion of either of these will constitute a review of the permit for either, continued approval or alteration. We'll just say that. This conditional use permit, again, shall become null and void upon the transfer of sale or ownership. And any signage posted by the applicant for display at this address, it needs to adhere to the same standards as for home occupations in this zone, as set forth by the sign ordinance, sections 6 and 7. There's stipulations for both wall and freestanding. They're very minimal. I don't have the language right here on hand, but it is very discreet. I should have detailed that for you. We can probably look it up here in a moment. I think that's, let's see, do I have some more? No. And that's the property in question.
Okay, any questions for Rhett right now? I know some people came in late. Has everybody that wishes to speak signed in and sworn in with Charlie? Is there anybody that needs to do that?
I'm sworn in, but I didn't sign in.
Okay, why don't you go,
Where do I
Yeah.
sign on that?
They could just do it after you're
There's
speaking.
Table
the
over there.
sign-in sheet on the table besides the meeting room to the right of everybody.
and then does anybody need to swear in with Charlie as well? Okay, we got one, so we'll do that again. Do you have a preference as to the order? Do you want to do it based on the sheet? How they're listed on the sheet?
No, they can just get up in any time.
Okay.
I do want to make one statement when they sit back down.
Okay.
Before we get started.
Okay.
Do we have the applicant here?
Yes, I believe so. Okay. You can go ahead, you can ask if you want to.
If the applicant wants to speak.
First?
Yeah, I think that'd be good if they went first.
Charlie, would it be okay if the applicant spoke first? Sure. That'd be okay? Okay.
Yeah, 'cause we wait on everybody to sign to not be here for a while.
I thought most people were going to be here.
I don't know, can they sign as they speak? Sign, speak, sign, speak.
It's okay. Then he wanted to say something too.
Right, right, you bring us dinner. Where's our dinner? We should have brought dinner. You were cracking me. Oh, it's the best. It's the best. You're going skip. I don't think any of these are down there anymore.
Yeah, he said I could have made you.
Yeah, I think they were a long time ago. I was looking at this one though, and I don't know what these salons.
Oh, sure. Haven't seen you in 50 years. Do you swear affirm what you're about to say to be the truth, the best of your information?
Thank you.
Lauren.
I was gonna say,
I didn't see that. I was gonna say I didn't
can
see it.
you, if, I don't have my work email, can you send it to my,
Yeah. If it's not hard,
can you, or that?
everybody's gonna wanna see it.
I don't have my work email.
He's like, oh yes.
All right, last one, and then I'll give it to Charlie.
I think he's already sworn the two. Oh, her. Yeah, maybe.
Did anybody else need to swear in with Charlie if you're speaking? Everybody all set there? Okay, go ahead, you wanted to say something?
Yes. Concerning a couple things that Rhett said, the existence in the past of approvals or denials of conditional use permits are irrelevant. They do not establish a precedent. But equally so, they also do not define the character of the neighborhood. What's out there today is what defines the character of the neighborhood. So we could have done 50 things in the past and that's irrelevant. It's what's out there, period. Also, you said something about you didn't go out there because they didn't own the property. They do have a contract or something for the property.
I'll let them speak to that for sure, but yeah, I think they're in negotiations, but I can't say.
Well, okay, well, make sure we need to ask that first, if they've got a contract, because they've got to have an interest in the property, or they can't even be here.
Do we need to ask that first?
Well, yeah, I think we need to ask them that first.
Go ahead.
When I say a contract, I don't necessarily mean a contract to purchase. They could be the leaseholder, I mean, I don't know what, but they've got to have a right to actually use the property. Otherwise, you know, I could come up here and do something on your property, or I'll get approval anyway, I didn't do anything. So, yes, we need to ask that question first.
To the
applicant.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
which we decided that we wanted to have her speak first, so that's fine.
Yes.
Anything else
Oh,
that you have?
no, sir.
Okay. Would the applicant be able to speak first? Okay, thank you.
What was that last question?
So do you have a contract on the house to purchase?
So I have an offer. They didn't want to do anything until this got approved, but once it got approved, they're ready to move forward.
Is that,
I don't think that flies.
Is it in writing?
I mean, an offer is.
It is with, and
Now,
I have
it
it
can be a
with the
contract that's
realtor.
conditioned on approval.
Oh, you have it with an agent?
Yeah,
A written,
like, well,
Can
like
you
through
get-
message,
Oh.
yes.
not written contract?
I mean, I have the offer contract that says it's contingent upon this.
Well, being contingent is fine, but
Yeah.
it needs to be signed by everybody that you've actually got an enforceable contract, albeit subject to a condition that this be approved. But you still have to have a contract. You've got to have an interest in the property. You can't just have an offer out there. You've got to have a contract.
Okay.
Do you have with you what you've got so I could see that?
does staff have anything
Yeah.
to that?
This affidavit here is for joint representation of case 1, 2, 3.
Can staff speak to what Charlie said? Is that accurate, that that's what you need before coming to the board? Okay. Okay.
Well, say staff does believe that the applicant has the necessary contract to have standing here.
Okay.
We'll just provide her time, I'm sure.
Okay.
Mr. Perkins can review.
Go ahead. Go straight to the source.
I mean, they're just gonna have it all come back again, that'd be silly.
Yeah, but we'll do it right.
I know. Then we're all gonna not be here next time. I'm just kidding.
I mean, it is the week after spring break, so it's after. Yeah, it's after. It's the.
Oh, they already have. Yeah. This guy, what is his new role?
He's
The Joe. The Joe. Okay.
yeah, you haven't met him all this?
No, I guess not. I remember. Oh, really? Where? Oh, wow. Okay, what's the next one?
Can we go to the next one? All right. Can everybody be quiet, please? Just real quick. Thank you. Thank you.
Barring the outcome of the conversation here, staff would recommend that this board postpone any future action on this until such a time that the applicant establish standing. At the next meeting is April 7th. Again, if in the meantime development happens, we could address it then.
So necessary documents are not in possession.
Barring the outcome of this
Okay,
conversation.
okay. Yes. Are we? No. We didn't do that.
No, Charlie.
I would suggest that those people who are here that are opposed to it, for the very fact that if it does come to
Right.
then we need to hear them.
I understand. I understand.
In the instance of postponement, as long as we have everybody's address on this, on your sign-in sheet, we can send out mail notices to those individuals. We just need to make sure that it's legible and it is written down.
Are those on
So
there?
we can hit every person that's been here.
That's something that's
So-
actually on there, correct?
I'm sorry, what?
That's something that's on the form,
Yes.
sign-in sheet?
Yes.
Okay.
So just make sure if, at whatever point,
Okay.
whatever happens as a result
So-
of this, we just do that.
Yeah. Because of, would we still be able to hear opposition to it since everybody's here?
Today, right
Yeah.
now, you would just take action to postpone because we couldn't hear it because it is postponed. If you can just cut everybody.
What?
I can't hear you over all the people talking, so
So we would not be able to hear opposition to
I don't
it?
believe it's appropriate to hear
Okay.
it because we're not even able to hear the applicant side of it. So we presented it, it would just
Okay.
be an action to postpone until such time that a contract is produced.
Okay.
And then it would just be that's what it is, and then we'll just re-notify, for the April meeting. It's just
Okay.
it's a board action though.
I understand.
So, we do, again, as Director Fleming stated, we do recommend just an outright postponement, barring whatever's happening right now, just so
Okay,
we get
yeah, I
time.
understand. I
So
understand.
just,
But it's all right. We can wait. I can't go to the next one. I can't go to the next one.
She's supposed to give her right. Right, she can give this one. But yeah. And I'll write it up. I said, I'll write it up.
of jokes today. I definitely know the real stuff.
That's what all the agents are.
I can just do it in 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna have to slam your gavel down.
No, that's only for the beginning. Okay, hang on, guys. Hang on, please. Give us a few more minutes of quiet, please. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
No, we were both.
Every time you pass the store, you know, to me, her house.
Yeah. Pretty big for them. Square.
When I was looking at it upstairs, I guess we looked at it being big.
Yeah, yeah. It looked like it was.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then we didn't know how big.
I drove out there the other day. Whenever I got the call initially,
But yeah, on that old application, that house.
everybody's calling me. I'm not there. I don't know.
The neighbor.
They're like, what happened? I'm like, don't know.
My wife is not here.
Oh.
The house was in for sale.
Of the neighbor that was here?
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
But when I looked it up, it got to the neighbor.
Okay. Wow.
Which,
Interesting.
I mean, it was on a Sunday, so I
Yeah,
guess it
yeah.
was still Friday. But thank you guys for your patience.
How many more do we have?
I think we have one more application, the Hudson Street one.
Okay.
Okay, Charlie.
Yeah, I was okay.
Talk to us.
because I was using my phone.
I think there was a misunderstanding as to whether they had a contract on the property or not, and apparently they do not at this point. The understanding was if they get approval, then they would sign the contract. Well, as I've explained to her, you've got to have an enforceable contract, albeit it's one that's got a condition on it, you know, that if this isn't approved, then it's no good. But when you come in and you file here, you've got to have a contract. You've got to have contractual interest in the property, and that she does not.
Okay.
Just simply messages that say if it's approved here, we'll sign the contract. Well, they need to sign the contract before they come in here.
Okay. So, in light of that, if staff could, you know, get with her to resolve that, and we'll postpone till next month.
No, they'll have to refile.
Refile,
Yeah,
I'm
we
sorry.
don't have authority to hear it if she doesn't have an interest.
So we don't even make a motion.
All we can do is say, good seeing you guys,
Okay.
and we'll probably see you again.
So, in that light, I'm sorry, we cannot hear the opposition because the applicant cannot speak on behalf of it at this time. I apologize for the time. Thank you guys for being here. I'm very, very sorry. And if staff could keep us posted on that, that'd be great. Okay, we have one more new application. When the room clears out, staff can go ahead when ready.
Brett's gonna have to just go up there and speak. Yes, you can. We'll be here forever.
What the hell does that mean?
Have a good night. Thanks, Tom. Thank you, guys. Okay, we're gonna go to our next application, if I could have quiet. Whenever staff's ready, it's fine.
Attorneys and, I was gonna say,
Little costume change.
amazing. Wow, he was, he done lost weight again. I said, oh, she's crying.
All right. I'll give them one more second or two before we move
Go ahead,
onwards.
Willis. Yep, got a throwback here.
Huh?
Got a throwback here. It's been a few months.
I know, it
since
has
you've up
been.
there.
We're just, it's mixing up a little bit. I don't usually do the applications. I give it to Rhett. I got bigger, better thing. I'm kidding. That's really mean. No,
right ahead.
I love my little boards. I love my little
Floor is
city boards.
yours.
Thank you. This is application 2025-04, conditional use permit for a professional office at 123 West Jefferson Street. It is a 4,000 square foot lot, zone R2 residential, and staff does recommend approval of the application. So this is an aerial shot of the property here. You can see Water Street, and then very briefly you can see White Pine Lane, which I didn't know that one was one, but anyway, this is a property with an existing residence on it. This is our zoning. The light pink to the south is the B2 zone, which is our downtown business zone. So many residences are in that B3, and this is one that is not, but very close to it. Conditional use permits are those which are essential to or would promote public health, safety, welfare in one or more zones, but would impair the integrity of the character of the zone in which it is located unless restrictions on location of size, extent, location, and character of performance are imposed in addition to those imposed by the zoning regulations. They may be permitted in zones that's designated under the zoning district regulations, but only when approved by planning or by Board of Adjustment, which is why we're here today. As part of this, we're just looking at the legal authorization to take on a conditional use permit issued by the administrative official, which is typically staff, but can be really anyone applicable, and consisting of two parts: a statement of the factual determination by the Board of Adjustment, which justifies the issuance of the permit, and a statement of special conditions which must be met in order for the use to be permitted. In the R2 section of the zoning ordinance, specifically 4.32, it lists professional offices as a conditional use in the R2 zone, which are defined in common nomenclature as a place of business where professional or their staff provides services to clients, different than a consumer services or retail services where it is a sale of goods and services. A realtor's office has been determined to fit within this category, which allows for it to proceed under this permit type. So this is kind of the details of the application. They are stated that they will be minimal staff with typically one-time administrative employee on site at a time, with operating hours from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. There's approximately 7,000 square feet of paved surface on the property, which would be potentially used for off-street parking for staff and clients. And when we're looking at parking metrics, in the subdivision regulations, the typical office is 1 space per 1,000 square feet of, 4 spaces for 1,000 square feet of gross usable floor area. And with the large properties, or with the property's large paved area, that would generally adhere to that metric expectation. You can see kind of here, I don't exactly know what this one's for. But this is just kind of the site context. There is across the street a large parking lot which is privately owned that if they needed it, they could potentially do a private contract to allow for parking near the property. And there is some on-street parking in the general area as well. Our general findings are the 3 above: that approval of the conditional use permit would not adversely impact public health, safety, welfare, nor alter character. There is ample surface surface area for parking across the street at another property owned also by the applicant, which can served as off-street parking for staff and clients. In addition, there is some street parking, although for these unique uses, we prefer that you try to keep the businesses off-street and kind of allow the residents to do that where possible. We understand that we can't exactly enforce that, but we just generally recommend that we kind of give the neighborhood the priority. And the third item is that the proposed conditional use permit meets the descriptions of such and shall follow the restrictions set forth by ordinance, which mostly that has to do with the number of staff, the number of activity and traffic, generally keeping it low-key, keeping it minimal staff, and keeping low traffic volumes. Ultimately, staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit for a professional office with 6 conditions of approval. The first 4 of which are typical 4 we see for use permits, so listen to us, listen to everybody else, return to us when, prior to any changes in approved conditions, and the use permit would become null and void on transfer or sale. Condition 5 would adhere to the described hours of operation and staffing. And previously discussed items, Attorney Perkins has kind of advised that the staffing count restriction thing is a little bit of a difficult situation to kind of evaluate. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I was writing at the time you started that part.
The condition 5 states that the applicant will adhere to prescribed hours of operation and staffing. In practice, I believe you've stated that like having a limitation on like clientele is a little bit
We really don't
difficult.
do that. Now, but this is a professional office, conditional use, not a home occupation.
That is correct.
Okay, so that's not as restricted as professional office is as a home occupation. So, again, hours and whatnot may well require some restrictions, but we really haven't, maybe just because we haven't had the situation. But depending on the staffing and all that, I mean, if it's something too big, obviously we might need to talk about that, but generally, no, we don't do that. Generally, we haven't done that.
Yeah, generally we haven't. Is it your general advice that we remove the and staffing section of condition 5, or would you just recommend just keeping it as is?
Probably shouldn't, oh gosh, that's really difficult. Because, for example, I mean, if this were gonna be some sort of firm that's got, 30 associates or something, whoa, maybe we do want to talk about that. So I guess it depends on what the applicant's description is, and if that's reasonable, then we don't even need to get into staffing and whatnot. And again, we've never really had to because that's never been applied for, but it certainly could be at some point.
Okay.
So
we'll leave it up to conversations with the applicant,
but,
essentially.
But when she describes what we're talking about, then we may get into that if we need to.
Okay.
Otherwise, that generally is not applicable.
You're right.
I'm sorry for the confusion.
It's all good. Continuing, just expansion of either, so either the described hours or staffing would constitute return to the Board of Adjustment for review of their conditional use permit. And the last item is regarding the signage for the property, just stating that it needs to adhere to the standards set forth for home occupations. I think it puts preference towards a wall sign, and then if a wall sign is not achievable, the applicant can request through another Board of Adjustment application to allow for a freestanding sign. Holden?
Yep. Just to clarify, within the findings and for the record, that the conditional use as applied for and inside the scope of what was presented in the application, staff does find that aside from not being detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare, will rather promote the general welfare of the community while offering a service that we would identify as a consumer service within our zoning text. And then from there, we'd love to open it up for questions.
Any questions for staff? Does anybody want to speak against this application? We can if necessary.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with it. I'll make a motion to approve it.
Did you want to clarify with her, Charlie, on that line 5 on any specific question?
Just on
I
staffing.
thought in the application, didn't it say like one person, one or?
Could you speak to the
maybe
staff, clients, and operations?
So I have a
little bit?
full-time person that works 9 to 5, and then other people come and go. The problem with real estate is not bricks and mortar anymore. So we pay commission straight out of, they don't come in for a check. Escrow, they don't come in. Contracts are all dot loop. So we really don't need the big office across the street just for the real estate. And one thing I do want to point out, I own the small parking lot, and that's what is going to be used for this. So the large office space that I have is different, but that small parking lot over there that sits right beside it is what I plan on use for the parking for it.
Right below the property on 131?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So that way it would have its own private parking as well.
Okay.
Basically, just add a point to that. With what she's describing, I don't think we need to at all.
Yeah.
We ought to point out, however, though, this is a conditional use. So if she overwhelms the neighborhood
I
because
totally
she's doing so much
understand that.
business,
Yeah.
then we can learn about that and we can actually call her back in and either place some conditions on that, or even if it's terribly successful, might even pull the permit and say you gotta go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's
Can't
fine.
imagine,
So
something
to
like
base
that
it
happening
on
to
how
that
many
degree.
agents I have would be hard, because I'll be honest, we may have 20 agents, but I see 18 of them, once or twice a year.
Yeah, so,
So,
Yeah.
but just with the proviso that we may have to come back if she overwhelms the
Very good.
neighborhood. But
Thank you
nobody
so
expects that, so,
Okay.
very good.
So I'll continue with my approval, my
Thank you.
motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All
Thank you
those
so
in
much.
favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Ursula?
Oh, thank you.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion
thank you,
passes.
guys.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
I still want to say I own the property next to this.
Keep one. That's something to say.
I like it. I like the positiveness.
Anything else? I know we have, yep, the officers, especially since we're all here, definitely want to do that, so. Do you want to start that, or?
I mean, so it's board led, so essentially you open up the floor for nominations from the floor for chair and vice chair.
Okay.
For general record, I believe, Nate, you are chair, or,
Yeah.
and then Amanda, you've been vice chair and chair previously.
No, I'm not vice chair this year, it was Barb.
No, Michael was vice chair previously. I
Oh,
think he
Michael, okay.
vacated. But you've been vice chair previously, or chair
I was
previously?
chair previously before Nate.
Okay.
So you were 2024, right?
No.
23.
Yes,
So it's.
You were 24 chair.
24.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I was previous.
Board positions are a year, so we have an election at the March meeting for the 12 months following the March meeting.
Okay.
And then we would just do re-election in March, so I don't believe anyone's we're gonna call it at risk of coming off of the board, so leaving an incomplete term year. Of course, we said that about Michael, and then Michael got elected to city council, so obviously that didn't really work out.
I don't think there's any elections this year, but.
I don't think there's any elections this year.
Could be
No, I think we're good.
extenuating circumstances, but, okay, so.
You would just open the
it
floor
up
for
anybody
nominations.
For nominations on it, okay.
If I might just say, the way we've done it, because it's kind of hard to do like you do a larger group. So the way we've always done it, and this is not written, I don't believe anywhere in stone, is we get a motion, say if you're doing it for chair, we get a motion and second for chair, and if we don't get a second, then we just simply treat that as by acclamation.
Okay.
If we do get one, well then clearly we'll do some kind of balloting. I don't remember the last time we ever had that. Basically, it comes down to, you wanna do it? No, I don't wanna do it. You do it? No, I don't wanna do it. Oh, I'll do it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if we do that, then we can just simply motion second, no further, and then we take a vote, and basically it's by acclamation. Then we do vice chair.
Okay, so for starters, is there anybody that is on this board right now that cannot be chair or vice chair because of their previous?
The only restriction is that you can do it twice in a row, you can't do it longer than that.
I believe it is twice in a row, and then you can either become vice chair.
Yeah, but you can then come back after you've laid out
So
once.
the only stipulation is, for 2 years.
Yeah,
You can't
and
be-
nobody at the moment has done that 2 years in a row.
That's correct.
So-
Okay, so does anybody wanna make a motion for somebody for chair?
I'll make a motion for you to stay chair.
That's what I was
This will be the last year.
That's fine.
I was gonna say that.
And Frank seconds it.
Thank you, Frank. I don't
I
know.
thought these people liked you.
Yeah, I know. Do we need to say yay or I accept or
No,
anything?
well, first of all, I guess you gotta say, you know, yeah, I'll accept it.
I will accept
And
it.
if there are no other nominations, then you declare nomination cease and
Okay.
take a quick vote on yourself.
Does anybody have any other nominations? All those in favor of proposed nomination?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I thought you might raise your hand. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'll do it. How about vice chair? Anybody want to nominate themselves or somebody else?
You can self-nominate?
I
Yeah, sure.
think so.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Okay. Jeremy? Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Carl? Does anybody else have any other nominations?
See, he just catches on.
Okay.
great.
Yeah, see, this is why you elected me.
He's a natural.
All those in favor for Jeremy as vice chair? Aye. You gotta say aye for yourself, yeah. Any opposed? Okay, we're all set.
All right, perfect.
Anything else? Staff? Charlie?
No, sir.
Anything else? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you all.